So my name is Deborah Berebichez, and I grew up originally in Mexico City in a community that didn't exactly encourage women from doing science. I learned to hide my love for math and physics because my parents, my school counselors, and everyone told me that it wasn't a career for girls and that I probably couldn't do it. Until I finally couldn't repress those wishes anymore, and I applied for a scholarship to the US, and I transferred, and finally, 6 years later, I ended up being the first Mexican woman to graduate with a PhD in physics from Stanford. And I share that with you because I'm a living example of the fact that if you put your dreams and your mindset into something, you can make anything come true. So let me tell you about my research. I work with waves, all sorts of waves, electromagnetic waves, sound waves, water waves, etc. Now, we all know that waves tend to scatter, to disperse. So it would be pretty weird if we saw all of a sudden that when I shout my voice in Grand Central, the waves, the sound waves, in this case my voice, would spontaneously arrange themselves to focus only at my girlfriend's ear so that I could tell her and only her a gossip or a piece of news. It's not only the case with our voice, but the dispersion of waves is pretty ubiquitous. The same thing happens with wireless signals. So when you communicate with your cell phone, the antenna sends signals that spread out in space. Therefore, anybody in the middle of the way can actually intercept the signal. Now, what would happen if we would be able to, instead of having scattered communication, to be able to control waves and actually focus them at a single intended location in space? Now imagine in one emergency day, for example, that Mayor Bloomberg is in one building in office 714, for example, and that for security reasons, he wants to communicate only with the head of the NYPD, who is sitting on another building far away from it, and no one else on the way to be able to intercept the message. That would be cool, wouldn't it? Another cool application, if we were able to focus signals, would be, let's say you're at the UN or in this auditorium, and I wanted to focus my speech, in this case John's speech, in a different language at each one of the seats. So here we see in Chinese, English, and Spanish. Wirelessly, each person would hear the message or the speech in their desired language without there being any interference with the person in the next seat. Another application would be underwater acoustic communications. So let's say that I want to communicate with the friendly submarine, but I don't want the enemy submarine that's right nearby to be able to get the signal and decode it. I would just physically focus my signal in a specific location. Another more lighthearted one would be in entertainment. So let's think about the eternal marital fight about watching TV. And in this case, we would have the husband watching his own TV show and the woman watching her own TV show without there being interference in the audio or video. Imagine also if you're driving in your car and each one of the persons in the car could listen to their own radio station without there being any interference. So how do we do this? I showed you what the problem is. The solution is using a method called time reversal. Unfortunately, my movies didn't load up in the computer, so this was a movie about a pencil being sharpened, being unsharpened back into being a complete pencil. Because when people hear the word time reversal, they often think it's reversing the processes that we see in nature. Well, not really. If used in signal processing, oops, sorry about that. Imagine that I send the word hola to you. What you would first get is the H, then the O, L, and then the A. Well, time reversing it only means to actually send, if you time reverse it, you would send the word alo, A-L-O-H. So time reversing it only means if we have a whole signal here, not just the word hola, but a whole message, a whole speech, time reversing it would only mean flipping it backwards. So putting first whatever I received last. That's as simple as that. Now, why is time reversal important? For the engineers in the room, you probably know that there's a diffraction limit, so that we can only focus things up to a certain point. But time reversal has an incredible result, which is the fact that it allows you to focus waves in space. And in cluttered environments, it focuses them so well that it transcends the diffraction limit, and it focuses to within half of a wavelength of the original signal. So just imagine here the red means high energy and the blue means low energy. So medical applications could use this when you wanted in lithotripsy to destroy a kidney stone. You would focus only on the kidney stone and not damage any of the surrounding tissue. Unfortunately, this is a movie, a computational simulation that I wanted to show you, but I wanted to show you live what time reversal looks like. So pretending the movie is going on, John here sends a signal, a very brief hello, that scatters all around the room, and it bounces with the walls and with the obstacles in the room on the way to each one of those audience members. Now, each one of those people there, Ting, David, Martha, and Dana, are recording all these echoes that are being transferred in the room for a long time. In the backward phase of time reversal, forget about that now. Maybe it works. No, sorry. In the backward phase, what you would see is now each one of these audience people will send the time-reversed version of the wave they recorded. And after a certain waiting time, you would see the waves scattered and in a complex pattern. But after a time equal to the recording time, the waves will focus only back at John's location. And nowhere else will you be able to get any interference. So the communication protocol would work like this. We would have these three guys be receivers. So they all have a microphone, just like mine. In the forward phase, each one would send a blip, and John would capture all the recordings and all the bouncings of the wave. The other one would send a blip, but because the location is different, the bounces would be completely different. So these echoes will get recorded, and then the third one will do the same. All John has to do is time reverse these signals and send them back into the room. And simultaneously, each one will focus at its intended location. So then when John wants to send an entire message and not just a blip, he would simply compose an entire signal out of these self-focused beams. So very briefly, we did this live in Toronto in the university, and we were able to focus. We were students waiting at each floor of these different buildings, separated by about 2 to 3 kilometers, and we were waiting for a signal. The students in the undesired floors did not get any signal whatsoever, just noise. But the people at the desired and intended targeted floors would get the entire communication. So it works, and the cool thing about time reversal is that in normal environments it focuses, but in cluttered environments it focuses even more. So why do I think it's amazing to have a university to do research and jump to entrepreneurship? At Stanford, I was very lucky to make use of the facilities. We had expensive wireless equipment. We had the libraries and archives. I could collaborate with top scientists, and I actually carried out my experiments not only in a parallel computer cluster, but also live at the Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey. Finally, the Office of Technology and Licensing at Stanford helped me assess the market impact and the market interest of my application, and we're going through the patenting process. Thank you for your attention.